Greetings, Guardians. My name is Bife here. So, spoilers from the very beginning, duh. We are still at the point where Renegades is fresh, so here is your spoiler warning. But we're going to jump straight into this one because we have some really interesting stuff to discuss. If you haven't played Renegades and reached the post-campaign content, this is why I'm going to recommend turning off. It literally affects basically the entirety of the Fate Saga going forward. It is the means by which we are doing one of the central things that is noted in the prophecy from Edge of Fate. So at the end of the Edge of Fate, we saw Lodi receiving the message of 3 and telling us the prophecy that would define the Fate Saga. Just as a reminder, this is what happened at the end of Edge of Fate, which immediately has knock-on consequences for the ending of Renegades.
A death ensures extinction. Listen carefully, children of my earth. To survive, you must bind the 9.
3 said their death starts a chain reaction that leads to extinction. But if they went through all the trouble to get us here, to send a message to the children of their Earth,
then it must be a warning, not a promise. 3 gave us instructions to prevent extinction.
bind the 9. A dying wish to save us.
This was the final message of what was effectively a god, sent to us by means of murder and manifestation over thousands of years. A warning, not a promise. An instruction with dire consequences should we fail. With 3's death, an extinction event for humanity was imminent. To survive it, we would need to bind the 9. But these cryptic words have not been well understood since the death of 3, even as they have been the focus of many of the leaders within the tower. But now we can finally see what I think is the truth of the matter because of the ending of Renegades. Now, to be clear, I'm talking about the very, very last mission, not the final mission where Renegade's campaign comes to its climax. No, I think that ending is pretty self-explanatory. Nightfall Station is destroyed, the Lost City, Guardians, and the Traveler are saved, Dredge and Bale and Premier Loom are still out there biding their time and regaining strength, and 6 is still plotting our eventual downfall. This is all fairly self-explanatory, and I don't think anyone needs too much more context on it. If you do though, please let me know in the comments section, because honestly, perhaps I am missing something there and there was a detail that you wanted explained. Today though, I wanted to address something that happens in the real ending of Renegades, in the post-campaign mission. In fact, I think it is such a major development that it's worthy of an entire video here, and I think this is one of the most important revelations in the entire Fate Saga. The development itself centers on Lodi and Dredge and Bale, who both have a conversation regarding what it's like to serve the 9, be possessed by them, and to act as their vessels. I'm just going to go ahead and play the really important bits of dialogue for you here.
Being the weapon is my purpose. 6 will honor my agency, and besides, he can't alter the future if he's tied to me.
It's true. They can do so much with us, but they're stuck to our dimensionality. They can see the future when they're in a body, but they can't change it.
Don't tell me what I already know. Something greater than me needs me. This is what I'm supposed to do.
6 gave Bale the Imperium, made him his weapon, all to tithe. Grow strength, build enough power to one day escape reality. And tying them to the bodies keeps them bound by our dimension. Bale even said that word, bound. We stop the threat of extinction by preventing 6 from changing the future. Are bodies the answer?
Guardian, you have 1 new code.
The other 9 didn't stop 6, which means they didn't know what he was going to do. Being in that vessel, in this dimension, prevented the other 9 from seeing him. But There's a catch. I know when the 9 use me, they can't alter the future. But 6 stayed, anyways. My gut is screaming that we prevent extinction by stopping the 9 from altering fate. Bind the 9 by binding each of them to a body. And I know where we can start. There's something that's been trying to talk to me. And when I talk back, all I can remember is how it felt to channel 3. It's dangerous. And worst part is, I know exactly where it is. Adams and Wabash. It's under Chicago. I'm going to ask Ikora to scout it out first. We can meet up with her there. Guardian, I don't want to go home, but I'm certain whatever 9 we bind first is there. I can't go there without Ikora. I can't go there without you.
And this is the crux of it all. If Lodi is right, he has just stumbled upon the most important revelation in the entire Fate saga. This is how we bind the 9, and what binding does to them. In order to control our own fate, we need to bind the 9 into the 3rd dimension via vessels, people that they can inhabit. When they're in these vessels, they're unable to use their 4th dimensional nature and powers to perfectly see the future and act in ways that can manipulate our lives and countermand our ability to influence our own fate. This right here, this is how you beat God. You make it mortal. Or rather, in this case, you bind it to someone in a lower dimension. When 6 was occupying Dredgen Bale, it was unable to change the future, thus once again allowing us to potentially make our own fate by preventing 6 from spanning all of it and making it determined from the start, as is the power of the 9. For those who don't know, the 9 experience the past, present, and future all at once in their default 4th dimensional state. This is what gives them the ability to countermand destiny. And so now we understand what it is to bind the 9. We have to find bodies for them. People who can be hosts for gods. But we also come to the most pressing question of all, which is, if Lodi is correct, we have to find a means of binding the 9 to these corporeal forms. But we also need to know who to bind the 9 to, or perhaps in some strange cases, what. Lodi already implied that there is something beneath Old Chicago that will let us bind our first member of the 9. Perhaps this is something to do with a remnant of 3, but it's really quite unclear. I'll need to do a whole other video on us going to Old Chicago, because that is a topic unto itself. It's likely going to be what happens in Shattered Cycle, and yes, there be monsters beneath Old Chicago's streets. But that's a story for a different time. The question here is, if we are going to do as Lodi is implying and binding the 9 to people, who are the likely candidates that could be binding vessels for the 9? It's entirely possible that we haven't met all the characters that are going to become vessels for the 9, but so far, I wanted to put forward a list of possibilities and give you my speculation on who might host each individual member of the 9. Starting with 1, going all the way through to 9 itself. For 1, aka Mercury, I think 2 characters are intrinsically linked to the planet above all others, namely Saint 14 and Osiris. Both are strong candidates narratively for binding the 9, but with our death revealed within the corridors of time, I think it's important to acknowledge that we personally might be a vessel for 1 as well. For 2, aka Venus, I wonder if we might see the return of a character like Praedyth, who might be rescued at long last from the Vault of Glass and its time-bound corridors. We might alternatively see someone that was once related to the Ishtar Collective rising to take that mantle. Yes, that choice of words is somewhat deliberate, because in a strange twist of fate, for all we know, this person might actually be the Conductor, aka Maya Sundaresh, although that would be a bit of a wild possibility. If we do have to bind some remnant of 3, then I think it's safe to assume that it'll be either Lodi or whatever he's been spying on in old Chicago that'll be a vessel for its remnants. But again, I can't put us out of the picture either. We are too intrinsically linked to this story after all. And there is a question still of whether 3 even needs to be bound. After all, 3 is dead. For 4, there are a ton of characters that have some associations that could make them ideal vessels for a member of the Nine. Not only do we have to consider Mars, but also potentially the Reef here, although a member of the Reef could be bound to 0 if dead and stillborn members of the Nine also count. As a result, I could see any number of possible candidates, but Commander Zavala stands out for me as a veteran of many Martian campaigns, and so does Crow, who in his past life as Aldrin crash-landed on the planet and was after all Prince of the Reef, and made his home out in the asteroid belt. But again, that's more of a Zero thing than a Martian thing. If there are any other characters that might be associated with the goings-on of Mars, we'd have to obviously talk about the Bray sisters, Elsie and Anna. I think Anna is more likely to be a candidate here given her work with Rasputin, who of course was based on Mars. For 5, I think we need to look to a bunch of characters that might be relevant, but in particular, those related to Europa and Io, as well as the Exos, the Elixni, and some select Warlocks. Elsie Bray is once again a choice that's relevant, but I think so too is Clovis Bray, or maybe even Banshee 44 for that matter. Remember that the Brays had a lot of goings-on the icy moon of Europa, so they are somewhat tied in with the fate of that planetoid. And then of course there are others who have also called this cold Jovian moon either their home or a temporary stopping point. In particular, one thinks of Varex and Mithrax. And then there is an even stranger possibility. The Jovians were the home previously of the House of Wolves, and it just so happens that the old Kell of Wolves, the mad Kell Skolas the Rabid, has been resurrected as a Scorn. And it's not impossible that we could see Skolas rising again to relevance in the story, although I admit that's a bit of a stretch. And then we have to remember that, of course, Europa is not the only moon of Jupiter. Io also exists, even if it is still captured within the Ascendant Plane. And of course, if you're looking at Io, you have to look at all the Warlocks that see it as a holy site and a place of great reverence as the last place that the Traveler touched. In particular, I think Ikora stands out as a keen possibility. For 6, I think it's gonna seem like it's a member of the Nine where their story has already been written. They've made a choice of elevating Dredge and Bale as a false shadow weapon. Therefore, Bale might be the vessel for 6. But Bale is already, after very little time, in a state of terrible degradation, and perhaps wasn't always meant to be chosen. In fact, Lodi implies as much. As a result, it's not impossible that he is the wrong candidate for 6. On a personal note of Bale's story, that would undoubtedly be a tragedy for him, considering that one of his main motivations was the fact that something greater than him had chosen him for something greater. But of course, that may not be the case. And if that is so, then we need to find someone else to act as the vessel for 6, a particularly violent and, at best, cantankerous member of the Nine. Characters associated with Titan and the Dreadnought ring closely with the story of Saturn and 6. As a result, one might look to those who have remained on Titan, or who are central to its story, namely Sloane and Asa. They also have powerful connections to the Taken and the Worm Gods respectively, and they have done their fair share of fighting for humanity, so it's not impossible that they might be able to act as vessels for 6. Then again, I think there are other potential candidates. After all, 6 saw the destruction of the Awoken fleet within Saturn's rings at the hands of Oryx. And if 6 is going to fight, and needs a will of great power to contest it, who better than the one who was ultimately the victor, even in defeat at the Battle of Saturn? Mara Sov. After all, she is probably the strongest-willed character in all of Destiny aside from perhaps ourselves, and her might has been proven time and time again. There are few who can resist an offer from the Witness with no outside influence. Mara is one of them, a singular character of will, a paragon of Sol itself, and a leader who was willing to put their own life literally on the line in order to ensure our victory, not only choosing to die in the assault at the Battle of Saturn, but also to trust that Guardians would be able to kill Oryx and prevent her from forever languishing as one of Oryx's taken. 7 is a complete unknown to us as it represents the planet of Uranus, and we've never actually visited it or one of its moons. Finding someone to represent 7 might be a luck of the draw kind of situation, but for the moment, I think if this was bingo, this would be everyone's safe bungo certified and numbered free space. Let me know what you think, because honestly, I don't think I understand who could even possibly be 7's vessel. 7 has not spoken to us much either, so it's entirely possible that this is a new character that will be binding them, a new character that will be revealed in time. 8 is linked in with Neomuna, the Veil, and the power of Strand held within. Therefore, we need to find someone who links in with these ideas potentially, as well as Neptune itself. The obvious candidate is Nimbus. They absolutely have the proximity to the planet in question, and they are in proximity to the Veil and many of Neomuna's stranger things and happenings. However, I do feel like they're not the only possible candidate. After all, Maya Sundaresh completely immersed herself in the Veil when she chose to attempt to link neurally with the Veil using the prototype Cloud Arc chairs. By doing so, she also allowed herself to mentally enter the Vex network and become the conductor, but undoubtedly her story is bound up with Neomuna and 8, and the Outer Orbits have taken an interest in Maya. We could also look again to another person who has some relevance to Neptune, namely Osiris. His connection to Strand was established there back in Lightfall, and he does keep in touch with individuals from Neomuna. There is also the outside possibility of Keitel, but her relevance to the planet is far less established. And then, of course, last but not least, there is 9, the Sun itself. Perhaps this is another situation where Lodi is the one who needs to be channeling this particular member of the 9. Perhaps Mara's majesty is needed to match that of the Sun. Perhaps in a fun twist of fate, it'll be Orin the formerly lost, back to get revenge and imprison her chief jailer, as it imprisoned her. But if you ask me, I think it's likely that we're also a candidate for the Sun. After all, it is the greatest of the 9 in size and authority, and if it is to be matched, then perhaps it can only be matched by us. All of this is speculative, and we still don't know much about how this binding might work. We don't even know if Lodi is completely correct. But for now, I think it's entirely possible that we've stumbled upon the most important revelation of the Fate Saga, and the greatest secret to binding the 9. A secret unintentionally revealed by Dredge and Bale, to the potential detriment of the Outer Orbits, the 9, and his Master 6. We rarely get lucky in Destiny, but it's time to capitalize on this luck if that's what it is. And so that is the most important revelation from the end of Renegades. I think we now know what it is to bind the 9. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you want more lore from universes near and far, go ahead and hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Rodacia ad Astra. I'll see you, Starside.